What's up guys, it's Zero, and today we're going to be talking about Affliction, Warlock, its current issues, and some potential changes that could help the spec a lot. I am making this video as of 3/20/2026 in lieu of the March 24th, 2026 tuning changes. This video is honestly more in response to Affliction not seeing any buffs or changes since I believe the end of beta, and it has continued to not see any changes besides bug fixes that did end up being buffs, but it honestly, Affliction could use a little bit more. All right, going into the current issues Affliction has in comparison to kind of the other two specs. First and foremost, the issue of the spec tree and some of its node placements that make it difficult to make builds that aren't either full single target or full AoE. Let me kind of explain. So the way the tree is currently set out severely hinders talent tree pathing and builds due to a couple of factors. You have essentially there's an extra point here somewhere. Well, anyway, you essentially have anywhere between 8 to 10 points, depending on the build, to go into the kind of capstone part of the tree, which is this section, down here. So you have essentially 8 points just because of how tuning stuff is up here. It's kind of whatever. But you have 8 points, but not including the Apex talent. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. You have 14 nodes you need to pick out of, but you only have 8 points to spend. Although realistically, that 8 is closer to like 6 due to the strength of Death's Embrace basically being an auto include in every build. It's you deal up to 40% increased damage on targets below 35% health. It essentially buffs all of your damage. So this is taken everywhere. So realistically, you have 5 points to do what you want. So like for a full single target build, this is currently what is simming the best. I wish this didn't exist, but that's something else I'll deal with later. And then the way the points are set up towards the bottom, and this you can clearly see you're literally pigeonholed into either a full single target or a full like AoE build. Overall, the current challenge tree structure severely restricts builds, reflecting how this was also a problem in pretty much all of Dragonflight, because all your AoE stuff was over here, some of your single talent points were over here, but there were so many 2-point nodes in the class tree or the spec tree that it just made it impossible to get anything without. You either did really good AoE with 0 single target, or you did decent single target and no AoE whatsoever. So yeah, really the big issue is a lot of the points, a lot of the nodes that could be compounded into one node, like Eye Contract and Nether Planing honestly could be put into one. This and this probably don't need to be 2 points. Some of these nodes like Improved Haunts, kind of whatever. Cunning Cruelty, it's neat, but it's kind of, I don't know, it's not really as impactful as it should be. But another fairly big complaint too is the issue surrounding Summon Darkglare, and from what I can remember, the design team's philosophy around pooling resources that led them to changing it. So Summon Darkglare, for those that don't know, is the primary cooldown of Affliction. Summons a Darkglare from Twisting Nether, does damage, 2-minute cooldown. What it used to do was it used to extend your active damage over time effects whenever you summoned it, while doing damage itself. In Midnight, Darkglare was redesigned to instead no longer extend the duration of your 3 main dots, and instead buff them by 20% while active. While the damage amp is actually really nice, it's neat, it doesn't resolve the kind of quote problem the design team was having regarding not wanting classes to pull resources around big cooldowns. For example, when before when Affliction was the main spender, which was Battle for Azeroth, you would pull your soul shards and then you would cast 5 to 6 unstable afflictions before casting Darkglare to extend them for a prolonged period of damage. And then there were some death bolt interactions there, but we don't really have that. I think it's a PvP talent. It's not even a PvP talent anymore, so never mind. But then when Rapture was put into the game, you would still pull shards and then spend all of them when you have your big CD windows with abilities like Soul Rot, Phantom Singularity, and of course Darkglare, because Darkglare would extend the duration of Phantom Singularity and Soul Rot, and you would pull all your shards to cast Rapture after those dots were extended. This problem has not been resolved during midnight, like the design team has wanted to allegedly move away from. This is especially prevalent for Hellcaller. Let me swap to this real quick just to show you. As Wither, so Wither replaces Corruption, and then Blackened Soul. Every time you spend a Soul Shard on damaging spells, it gives Wither a stack, and then after a set amount of stacks through Seeds of their Demise, all the stacks collapse. Since Wither gains a Soul Shard for every time you spend, it gains a stack every time you spend a Soul Shard, and the stack count is increased even further through Malevolence, Alzin's Inquity, which is just one of the hero talent things, and this is a 1 minute cooldown. You still pull soul shards around Malevolence, especially Malevolence and Darkglare, because what you do is you pull the soul shards, and then you Darkglare, Malevolence, and then you spam UA on the target. This increases, this in turn ramps up the stacks on Wither, makes it do a whole bunch of damage through Blackened Soul and Seeds of their Demise and all this other stuff. But it's still the issue. It still has the issue of you still pooling for shards because the hero talent literally builds upon, pun unintended, builds upon you pooling all these shards and saving them to use them for big cooldowns. Soul Harvester, this isn't really as much of an issue as, let me swap back again. The capstone node here, Shadow of Death, whenever you cast Dark Harvest, you just get 3 soul shards. Affliction doesn't have guaranteed ways to generate soul shards outside of sniping them with Drain Soul or a target dying with unstable affliction on them. And of course, outside of Soul Harvester is the only way you have guaranteed shard generation through Dark Harvest, which even with Cull of the Week is like a 30 to 45 second cooldown, kinda, just depending on how many UAs you get and stuff. So the shard pooling isn't as bad for Soul Harvester since you can kind of just send Dark Harvest whenever. But for Hellcaller, you're still sending stuff to line up with cooldowns and such. What I mean to say through all of this really is that instead of pulling shards for UA, casting them all, popping Darkglare to extend them, you instead do the inverse, where you pop Darkglare. You're still pulling shards, but you pop Darkglare first, and then you just dump all your unstable afflictions, since they're buffed by 20% while Darkglare is active. To kind of put it in perspective, like the old UA Darkglare setup would be pull shards, put your dots up, put all your debuffs and stuff up, and then dump all your shards for UA, hit Darkglare, and then kind of refresh UA, add new UAs as it went on. But now it's, like I said, it's the opposite, where you pull shards, keep all your dots up, you Darkglare first, and then you dump all your shards. So like you're still pulling shards to dump all of them. It's just you're doing stuff instead of Darkglare to extend UA, you're just spamming UA after Darkglare. Honestly, I think the solution to fix this issue, since this hasn't really changed from their wanting to move away from, you know, pooling resources, just add the extension back, but cap it to 5 unstable afflictions. That's it. That's really it. Minor talent gripes that I'll kind of talk about later on. There's a lot of talents that either need to be changed and or moved around or merged. Malefic Grasp is one of them. Currently, since Summon Darkglare doesn't extend dots, which is another, it makes the whole rotation feel super clunky. So, like, for example, just slap a turnip down. So, like, just for an example, for an opener, I'll just dismiss my pet too. So open up with a haunt, agony, UA, corruption, UA, Darkglare, Dark Harvest for Soul Shards, you spam UA. If I had Grasp Period, makes sense. But, like, here's where you'd be grasping. Oh, but Haunt's falling off. Oh, Agony fell off. Oh, UA's about to fall off. Hold on, let me get these back up. And then, oh, this is, I'm draining, grasping, and oh look, Darkglare's up. I think you get, if you play perfectly, you get 4 or 5 casts of Malefic Grasp, which, since it's tied directly behind Darkglare, it just feels bad. And the damage amp that it does do decent damage, kinda, but it feels super clunky because you summon Darkglare and then you want to spam UA, but then your dots are falling off, so you have to catch those. But then your haunt falls off, so you have to catch that. But then you have to grasp. You have to get value out of grasp by casting it, but it's only active as long as Darkglare is active, which is between 20 and 25 seconds, depending on if you take eye contract. So overall, the talent is very clunky, very not fluid with the rest of the spec, and I think it could be changed into something else that I will actually elaborate on further. And kind of going back to Unstable Affliction, I think it just needs a buff, or the talents that buff it, like Potent Soul Shards, Xavius' Gambit. I think those are the only two that really buff it, like, directly. Yeah, so, like, Potent Soul Shards and Xavius' Gambit, I think, need to be buffed, or Unstable Affliction itself just needs to be buffed by itself. Since it's supposed to be our main source of damage, and it's our primary soul shard spender in single target, but its damage, it feels like it does nothing. It feels like it legitimately tickles. Just kind of for an example, let me bring it back up. So yeah, just kind of for example's sake, this is my character that I threw in a sim, you know, character's kind of whatever, but, like, look at Unstable Affliction's damage. 16 or the overall, it's 16% of my overall damage. And then Drain Soul, I think is fine at, like, being 11, almost 12% because of all the modifiers that are in the tree, but, like, Unstable Affliction is right here, and Drain Soul is right here. Why is our primary soul shard spender that I'm casting, like, let's just call it 100 times, like, the sim has it cast 100 times and it's doing only 16% of my overall, whereas Drain Soul, our filler spell, is only being cast half the time and it's doing, like, a third of, like, 2/3 of the damage that Unstable Affliction is doing. Like, this is a little ridiculous. So this is just more so just so that I think that can't talk, holy hell. This is why I think Unstable Affliction either needs a direct aura buff, like maybe 15-20%, because it was nerfed like between 4 and 6 times over beta, and then it was buffed once. and then it never got any more buffs after because there was a bug with it that I think I know what was wrong with it, but I don't actually know because I don't know programming or coding or anything like that. But basically, Unstable Affliction was nerfed like I said between 4 to 6 times, and it was only buffed like once to compensate. So yeah, Unstable Affliction or the talents that buff it directly, like Potent Soul Shards. Like Potent Soul Shards could probably be like Unstable Affliction, increases Unstable Affliction damage by like 10 or 15%, and then Xavius's Gambit could probably be like 10 and 20%, if I'm being honest. That way you have to take the talents for Unstable Affliction to do really good, but also I think just an aura buff to it overall should be implemented. And now with that mostly out of the way, I'm gonna go ramble about my proposed changes and show off my own affliction tree to see what kind of things could be added to affliction to make it a lot better. I feel at least. So yes, it wouldn't be a me video without a talent tree, a custom talent tree. These are just all my notes that I've made throughout the time. So this is what I've kind of redesigned it to be. As you can tell, it flows almost identically to the demonology, or no, it flows more closely to the destruction tree. So like at the top, agony, UA, seed of corruption, practice pestilence, which I believe is practice pestilence, which is right here. Over here, it's a little bit higher up in the tree, but that's fine. So the reason I did this, I redesigned the tree this way, was to alleviate the problem of either going full single target talents versus full AoE talents. So some of the changes I made, I moved Sow the Seeds way up the tree. I put it in a spot to where you have to take Seed of Corruption to then go into Sow the Seeds, but also Sow isn't all the way down here as a capstone node. So you can still have your kind of AoE profile, because Destruction and Demonology, just for example, let me swap specs real quick. So like Destruction has, or Demonology has Implosion right here, but then it has Dreadlash here, which causes, Dreadstalkers to AoE stuff. And then for Destruction, it's kind of set up similarly where Rain of Fire is right up here, and Rain of Fire does good damage by itself, but then all the Havoc stuff, like, because you can path out of this stuff. Like if I just look at this, just like a single target build, you can path out of Havoc, and you don't need to take it to get into the rest of the tree. But I feel with kind of this redesigned tree, you can still get Sow the Seeds for AoE stuff, like if you really wanted to. Like, just for example, you can go, boom, Sow the Seeds. I would take out of this, go into this. I think can just continue on, right? Other things I've made, I've rearranged the tree to kind of just show where stuff is. I don't know if it's, there we go. I added some talents. Perpetual Agony of Adjekir, it was a legendary in Shadowlands that basically increased the soul shard generation of Agony. I added this to make the single target soul shard economy kind of a little bit better. It's like Agony has a 15 in this instance that I have. Agony has a 15% increased chance to generate a soul shard. This effect is doubled if it's only on one target. And then the other couple things I did, I like Dark Harvest is neat. I don't like that it's a channel though. I feel like if it was a push a button or just cast, it would flow a lot better, because there are times where you cast it and then like a ground effect happens and you have to move and you completely gut the cast of Dark Harvest and it ruins your rotation. My honest proposed change is to just put Rapid Contagion. It was an old PvP talent. In its place, instant minute cooldown, press it, next 10 seconds, all your damage over time effects occur 15% more often. Basically, you push button, your dots tick a lot faster during that duration. And then Cold Awake would just be redesigned to where it reduces the cooldown of Rapid Contagion by 30 seconds, but Rapid Contagion also causes your damage over time effects to occur 30% faster, but you need to spend two soul shards to cast Rapid Contagion, which with Soul Harvester you would push it before or after, Darkglare and stuff, and you would get the increased dot ramp, but you would also I feel like paying 2 shards to have like the increased dot ticking thing is worth it, so probably could be iterated on. Haunt is more or less the same. I changed Improved Haunt to Haunted Soul. Your Haunt spell now increases the damage of your damage over time effects on all targets by 10% active. Yeah. Update that. This is a talent from Dragonflight, I think. Yeah, Dragonflight. I feel like Improved Haunt is kind of turbo ass, and it doesn't feel impactful. I know the Apex talent is surrounded by Haunt, but I feel like having Haunted Soul gives Affliction the dot fantasy a little bit better by buffing Haunt to have your dots do 10% increased damage. The 10% could probably the 10% is just what I put. I don't, this is make believe fairy tale land. Numbers could change. 10% could be too much. 10% could be too little. I have honestly no idea. And then my kind of next proposed change to Malefic Grasp, which is I already talked about it. Just make it passive like it was in Legion. Channeling Drain Soul, your damage over time effects deal 40% increased damage to the target. 40% again, it could be changed to like 20%, 25%. But this would have Grasp be completely passive, but it would also amp your dots up on that because you're locked to one target with Drain Soul. So this would also be it's a single target. It's like locked into single target. So this would be like just a pure single target buff. And I feel like this also, because you're casting Drain Soul a lot anyway, or your filler spell anyway. Just having this, I feel like, just improves the single target without other things getting out of hand. My next change, again, I think Darkglare should just go back to extending dots, but only up to 5 unstable affliction effects. And then down here, I kind of got rid of the bloat of nether plating and eye contract and kind of merged them into 2 different effects. So Cunning Cruelty is it increases the damage of your Darkglare by 15%, lasts additional 5 seconds. But while Darkglare is active, it causes your damage over time effects to deal an extra 15% more damage while Darkglare is active. So it still keeps the spirit of how Darkglare is currently at midnight, where it gets the 20% amp, and then it lasts 5 seconds, just because Eye Contract, I feel, just should be baked into Darkglare, but maybe that's just me. But then Grimreach. Grimreach is just Nether Plating renamed, but it hits all targets within 10 yards of its initial target, and it also lasts an extra 10 seconds. Also, Darkglare does increase damage by 5% of the 15% per damage over time effects you have on those targets. Basically, Cruelty would be like the single target / kind of AoE thing, kind of AoE talent, where Grimreach would be your big sorry, I just realized this isn't connected to There. Yeah, so like cutting cruelty would be your single target kind of spread cleave thing, where grim range would be like your mass AoE thing. Sudden onset, I forgot. I reworked agony in my tree to just work like kind of classic, where you apply it and it just, instead of getting stacks, it ramps up, and if you refresh it, it maintains its current damage level. Sudden onset, it lasts an additional 4 seconds and it deals its full damage 15% faster. Sacrilege is the same. The bottom of the tree is where you can see is where I changed a bunch of it. So I put Xavius' Gambit here, and I put Seeds of Destruction here. They're right here, and they're right here in the main tree, in the retail official tree. I made them 1-point nodes with their 2-point values, so that you could still get access to these without, again, having to go full single target or full AoE. And then on the sides, I made Potent Soul Shards and Niskaran methods 2-point nodes. Niskaran, damage dealt by Agony and Corruption, and then Potent Soul Shards is the UA and Seed of Corruption damage bonus. I put them there because like they're universally applicable, but you can kind of skip them if you want to get further into this. You have to go with methods, but that's fine. And then Death Embrace I just put in the middle, where because on the destruction tree, there's a talent right here, Conflagration of Chaos, that's like universally applicable. That's just right there. You probably have to nerf Death Embrace to like increase up to 20% or 30% to have it set off to where it's not locked behind 2 talent point or an extra talent point. But again, that's tuning. And then kind of going further down, I have Cascading Calamity, which is right here, and it feeds into just a buffed Fatal Echoes. I think 10% is way too low, and it barely happens, if I'm being honest. But, you know, buffing it to 20% and making it a capstone, I feel is a fair trade-off. Shroud Instability is the same. I also, I know Improved Shadow Bolt is here and Drain Soul's here. I feel like we should just get rid of Improved Shadow Bolt in place of Drain Soul, and then make Nightfall let you cast Drain Soul while channeling. Just that, so every spec has its own unique filler spell. That's more me. And then kind of the new capstone that I made is made/reused. Focus Malignancy. UA can only be applied to one target, but you deal 10% increased damage to targets afflicted by UA. And then if a target with UA dies on it, any remaining stacks are just transferred to your nearby enemy. That part can probably be taken out, but this is to kind of focus more on the single target aspects, where I can put UA on one target, but that one target is taking a lot more damage. Kind of moving into this side of the tree, which is more AoE focused. Patient Zero, it's the same. It's this thing right here. Increased damage dealt by Seed of Corruption to its host by 50%. Nocturnal Yield, it's the same as it is right here. Increases corruption damage by 10%, and Nightfall lets you cast Seed of Corruption with a no short cast, and it's instant. And then I made Improves to the Seeds and Doom Blossom. Doom Blossom was a talent in Dragonflight where if you cast Seed on a target with UA on it, it exploded. This is essentially the same thing, except I changed it to Haunt. That way there's not the weird, I need to cast UA first and then I go Seed spam. Haunt is, you're going to have target or Haunt on a target at all times, especially with the Apex talent. So I felt like changing it to Haunt would be better. Plus it'd be a nice little flavor of, kind of weird prio explosion damage. And then Improves to the Seeds. This could probably be improved or implemented, but it just reads as when Seed of Corruption explodes, all nearby enemies hit by this explosion take an additional set of damage over 4 seconds. It's just an extra dot that happens when Seed pops. It's a little bit extra damage. It's not like super mandatory, but again, if this was buffed, nerfed, actually implemented into the game, the numbers could be changed a lot. But honestly, that's kind of just my proposed changes. Make grass just passive. you channel drains along a target, it causes your dots to do more damage to it. It's locked to single target, and I think that this is an infinitely better version of this one too. I think Darkglare should extend dots again, but obviously put the 5 UA cap, or hell, make it 4 UAs that are extended if you really want to. And then yeah, just kind of moving seed up higher to where you can take it in an AoE build, but then you just have enhancing AoE abilities down here to where you're not locked into, again, full AoE or full single target and no way to really merge in between them. Despite that, I know I've been rambling for, was it like 30 minutes now? I still think that this current Affliction tree is built very well. It flows very nicely for the most part, and it plays, it's really, really, really fun to play. But I feel like it just needs a little bit more extra help to make it, I think, just perfect. But with that, I'd like to thank you all for watching and listen to me ramble and yap. And I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.